Let us get started with our panel discussion. Our panel discussion today has um, some of the best minds in AM in our country. Let me start by introducing our panelists. Our first panelist today is Dr. Mukesh Agarwala, an entrepreneur, a scientist, consultant, author, and speaker. Dr. Mukesh Agarwala is Managing Director of 3D Product Development, a private Indian firm he founded in 2000. The company provides technical services and strategic consulting in 3D printing and additive manufacturing. Through his company, Dr. Agarwala has provided services to over 500 organizations in India. For the past 30 years, Dr. Agarwala has focused his education, research, and practice on design, prototyping, and materials processing. He has authored more than 50 articles and technical papers and has been awarded 5 patents on materials and 3D printing. Dr. Agarwala completed his bachelor's degree in 1988 in metallurgical engineering from the Indian Institute of Technology, Madras, and earned his PhD in materials engineering from the University of Texas at Austin, specializing in 3D printing processes and materials. From 1990 to 2000, he worked on various 3D printing processes such as FDM, SLS, SLA, and LOM. During this period, he developed several advanced materials for these processes. In 2000, Dr. Agarwala returned to India and started 3D product development, providing prototyping technology services. With over 22 years of experience in the AM industry and over decades of in-depth knowledge, Dr. Agarwala brings with him a unique edge to the panel. Not only does he bring his experience, but also in-depth educational knowledge of AM. Welcome to the panel, sir. Our next panelist is Mr. Aditya Kumar, a stalwart of the Indian AM and Indian plastics industry. Aditya Kumar graduated with a bachelor's degree in polymer engineering from Maharashtra Institute of Technology and a master's degree in plastics engineering from the University of Massachusetts Lowell. He started his entrepreneurial journey by starting Marco Polo products in 1999 and has spent the last 23 years building and growing to be the pillar of the industry that it is now. One of the first users of 3D printing in India, in my knowledge, Aditya ji has been a mentor to many young entrepreneurs like myself. Aditya ji has also served as the treasurer for IMF from 2020 to 2022. An old player in the AM industry, Aditya ji brings with him a deep understanding of the industry and experience of running an industry agnostic service bureau. Welcome to the panel, sir. Our next panelist is Priyesh Mehta. Priyesh started his career as a metallurgical engineer working for L&T in UAE. He then pursued his master's degree in additive manufacturing and design and was a graduate research assistant at Penn State University and an intern at Exact Metal in the US. A metal AM and design specialist, Priyesh currently serves as a director at Imaginarium, one of India's largest 3D printing service bureaus and AM equipment reseller. Priyesh likes helping people adopt and implement AM from advanced prototyping to short batch manufacturing using core design, materials, and equipment expertise with a slice of change management. He's also a 3D printing mentor with the government's Atal Innovation Mission. When not working with 3D printing machines, Priyesh enjoys meeting new people and hearing new perspectives and loves to play chess. Priyesh brings with him some great insights with his fresh postgraduate study in metal AM, as well as his extensive work and research in metal AM, as well as polymer AM in India and overseas. His experience is not just limited to service bureaus, but machine and equipment sales as well. Welcome to the panel, Priyesh. Our next panelist is Abhishek Shetty. Abhishek Shetty started his career as a project engineer at Gandhi Automations before interning as a design engineer at Design Tech Systems in Pune. He made his foray into the Indian AM industry by working for Divide by Zero as a rapid prototyping engineer. Abhishek then went on to work as an applications engineer at Adroitech Systems and Arc Info Solutions before setting off on his entrepreneurial journey in October of 2021 by starting Positron Additive. Abhishek brings with him a lot of applications experience in AM and brings a unique perspective to the panel as someone who runs one of the youngest service bureaus set up during the pandemic. Welcome, Abhishek. And our final panelist for today is Rajashekar Uputuri, an engineer from BITS Pilani and an MBA from the China Europe International Business School in Shanghai. Raja does not need an introduction, as a lot of you, like me, may have come to know him well over the last few years when he served as the president of IMF. A serial entrepreneur and a fantastic leader, Raja's first company helped helped convert physical pictures into digital memories, while his second and more prominent startup, Think 3D, was his foray into the 3D printing industry, which has now emerged as one of India's largest 3D printing and product development service bureaus, based out of the Andhra MedTech zone in Visakhapatnam, with offices in Hyderabad. His third and brand new venture, Sinterize, is a product development and manufacturing company based out of the US. Raja is a prolific entrepreneur and has an avid love for technology. He brings an interesting and unique perspective on the role of government, both state and central, that government can play in enabling adoption of 3D printing in India. And he brings with him critical insights on where the Indian service bureau industry is headed in the future as compared to in countries like the US. So please join me in extending a very warm welcome to all our 5 panelists. Our format for the panel discussion today is quite straightforward. I will be directing some questions to our panelists here. Some questions will be general, and anyone can jump in and chime in on that, while some may be specific questions that I will direct to specific panelists here. We wanted to flow like a conversation. So if at any point any of you feels that that you want to jump into the discussion or jump into a specific question, please feel free to do so. Let's get started by breaking the ice and learning from the journey of our panelists here. Each of you have a unique perspective. Each of you have a unique story and a unique journey. So let's hear maybe in a few lines about your individual journeys, your challenges, and some of your important victories. So maybe we can start with Dr. Agarwala.
Thank you, Parth. Good to see some old faces, Aditya ji. And what do I say? I mean, I think Aditya and I, okay, you want me to start my video? All right. I think Aditya, Paresh Bhai, who's in the attendees I see, and I are probably the granddaddies of this service bureau business in India, right? So, I mean, at least I've grown the white beard also to look more like granddaddy, and I think Aditya and Paresh Bhai should join me in that journey. So, well, we started, I think Aditya and Paresh Bhai was one of the first one in 96, 97 to start. And then I started in 2000, and I think Aditya started just about a year before that. I mean, so somebody, Ankit was talking, when I joined in, I heard Ankit talk about CAD and that not many people even know how to do design. Ankit, when we started, companies didn't even have CAD software. I used to go to companies and they had drafting tables. I mean, I'm talking about, these are real giants, okay? And we had to go and sell 3D printing and rapid prototyping. I mean, boy, oh boy. And I used to literally think about whether to walk out of those places back then in 2000, 2001, 2, 3, 4. So there were erstwhile so-called Indian giants who didn't even use CAD. They used to have this computer with, of course, a Ganesha and the swastika on it. And only the vice president would have a computer with a big monitor and a plastic cover over it. Okay. Rest of the people had drafting boards and so on. So yeah, as a country, we have come a long way, and good to see that our little industry of 3D printing, rapid prototyping, additive manufacturing has grown to a point that we have almost 50, 60 people here. So for me, it's been a good, happy, productive, satisfying journey, and really great to see people like Ankit and a lot of other, I think, I'm meeting a lot of you for the first time. I think Raja and Abhishek and some of you. So great, good to know that you have come a long way, and wishing all of you the very best in years to come. That's pretty much from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Aditya ji, do you want to?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Thanks, Parth and the IMF team for putting this panel discussion together. I think gives us a very nice opportunity to interact with each other and share our thoughts. And what do I say about my journey? Mukesh ji and Paresh bhai have been a part of it, and it's really nice to see the industry, service bureau industry, grow from 5 to 500, and still counting. So it's really nice. If you talk of challenges, of course we had a keyword. Who has a CAD software, go and target him. So I think Mukesh ji captured it very aptly. And of course, the second challenge was being in our city of Calcutta. That we had to really work hard, rather harder to get in our clients to get to use the 3D printing technology. But overall, yes, it has been a good learning experience where we have learned with our customers, grown, been able to grow with them, and look forward to continue to learn in this sphere.
Thank you, sir. Raja, do you want to go next?
Yeah. Firstly, thanks, Parth, Swapnil, and the entire IMF team for organizing this session. I joined midway when Ankit was mentioning, he was giving a session on Metal AM, and it's really insightful what all points he mentioned. And I can't help but agree with most of his points with respect to manufacturing per se than into manufacturing. And we as a country is sorely lacking in competencies in manufacturing. My journey is much more shorter when compared to the ones that Mukesh had and our sorry, just not getting the name. Yeah, my journey is much more shorter. I started in 2014. That time I was doing my other business, which is into digitization. The company was headquartered in Switzerland. And when I was traveling there to Europe, and that was the time I saw this 3D printer in one of the museums. And there's a desktop 3D printer, I saw this desktop 3D printer and was quite amused. And I asked some questions, and then and I realized that digital manufacturing, on-demand manufacturing, these are some keywords which connected a lot with because I thought that is the future. And that's the basis of my starting this company. See, I'm not into mechanical, actually. I'm more of a computer science student, and I'm more good with technology than manufacturing. But when I started this thing, thinking that digital manufacturing, it has more to do with digital than manufacturing, right? But then when I started this, it proved to be sorely wrong. It's pure manufacturing technology. This all AM, CNC, and all these things. Ultimately, what matters to the customer is the product, right? The means with which you achieve it really doesn't matter. So when I in 2016, when I thought that this entire 3D printing gets democratized. In fact, our agenda is also to democratize manufacturing, just the way computers were democratized in the late 1990s. I thought, maybe reading all those articles and this make about creating a lot of hype and all that, I thought this is going to happen someday. Some breakthrough innovation will happen, and then every computer or every desk will have a 3D printer, and I wanted to play a role in that. But then by 2017, I realized it's not going to happen, right? And I was thinking about pivoting from a desktop play. And at the right time, I got this opportunity from Andhra Pradesh government, which luckily fell in place for us. And so now we are a pure play, not just a 3D printing company. I won't call myself an AM person any longer. I'm more of an integrated manufacturing setup I have with CNC, injection molding, and we do a lot of decent number of molds. We do CNC machine jobs, and we also do additive manufacturing. So the challenges were, if you ask me for the challenges, the major challenge is additive manufacturing has a role to play when there is an innovation in the ecosystem, Okay. Uh, and as a country, we are lacking in the innovation side of things, right? We are more of a mass manufacturing economy. Even that also is not that great when compared to China and any other countries. We are very, very low in this, if I call it as a hierarchy of manufacturing, a global manufacturing landscape, right? So that's where the industry, I feel it has a great future, because I'm doing CNC, I do molds, and I know the pain in getting a product out. I know absolute the kind of pain one has to endure, because there is a projects which go for months and months, and multiple components, multi assemblies, tolerances, and lot of machinist skill set dependent work. So you don't have complete control of the outcomes. So in that space, I feel like 3D has a great future. But then as it stands now, because of this, the whole economics of 3D printing, it is not at a scalable technology. It's for innovation, it's for prototyping, it's for batch production, and we are not at there, because as Ankit was mentioning, the two major industries we had was automotive and white goods. We need lot more innovation in the economy, lot more product development in the economy to have a real flourishing 3D printing industry, is my opinion. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Raja. Abhishek, tell us about your journey and your challenges and your victories.
So thank you. First of all, thank you, Swapnil sir, Parth, and IMF team for this opportunity. I can see all the players, all the seniors who are from the decode in the industry, and comparatively, we are very newer. We started 9 months back. So I started my AM career with Divide by Zero technology as a RPD player. So I used to play a lot around the printers on testing new materials. Then I was with Adroitech. So I got a lot of exposure, industrial exposure, applications, and different technology in Adroitech. And then I was with the ARK as the application. So I have a more of experience in terms of the application. So what I thought is like the accessibility of like availability or accessibility of the AM to everyone like who try to make the new innovative products. It might be a medical startup or any a single person who make the things in the garage. It should be available. So in terms of my application journey in a product life cycle, I found that in many areas or in many spaces in the complete product life cycle, AM can add a value to make that product faster or more like efficient as the traditional way. So we are just trying to help the companies or like startups or innovators. Uh, uh, like they should not have the technical hustle of that manufacturing constraint. They should keep their focus on the end product or how their product will perform. Whatever uh, uh, the things, how to their product need to be manufactured, that we are helping out them with the additive manufacturing. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Abhishek. Priyesh,
First of all,
to you.
thank you so much, Parth, Swapnil, and the entire IMF team. I really don't know how you all guys take out time, because all of you all are business owners to, organize these kind of sessions. So really envious about, your commitment towards, boosting the Indian additive manufacturing ecosystem, and definitely, super excited to see how Imaginarium and me on an individual level also can be a small part of it. Talking about the journey, I'm a mechanical engineer by trade, so my first job was in the oil and gas fields in Abu Dhabi. So I was an NDT engineer, non-destructive testing engineer, and I had to radiograph and ultrasonic kind of inspect more than 200 wells a day. And what is different between one and second weld, right? Just one porosity or one inclusion here and there. So the job was pretty boring and monotonous. So I think the variety of additive manufacturing is what attracted me, to this field. As an engineer, my goal was always to make sure that I get exposure to different kinds of industries, different kind of products in a short time, or in on one platform. And that is what additive manufacturing has offered, me as an individual. And overall, most of my friends, I think a lot of us here would share that, bond that after graduating, my bachelor's, most of my friends went abroad, right? US, Europe, Germany, Australia, Canada, or abhi I don't know, Ireland, kahan ja rahe log, Finland, Ukraine. But I thought that, after I graduate, masters karna hai, so I have to master in something which is specialization, right? I cannot master in mechanical engineering. I mean, that is not something, because I wanted to take enough time for me to find out what I'm passionate about, right? So I used those 5 years. So initially I was in Abu Dhabi for 2 years, and then I came back to India, and I was just because one of my friends, own a classic car. Okay, so for that classic car, he was looking for spare parts, and he was not able to get it from the OEM. Of course, the OEM had stopped manufacturing it in 1940s. So he just told me, hey, "You're a mechanical engineer. Can you help me out?" So obviously, my mechanical engineering skills and design engineering skills were activated, and I helped him design and produce the 7 critical kind of parts for his car, and it started working. So I said, wow, I mean, as an engineer, we always have this constraint of whenever you're designing something, or whenever you want to order anything from a manufacturer, you always have to come up with a MOQ, minimum order quantity, right? And additive manufacturing doesn't require MOQs. That is the beauty and the value proposition of this technology. So those things combined together, I started my journey, at Imaginarium as a sales engineer. I used to, sell equipment in the jewelry, hearing aid, dental industry, and slowly moved on to the industrial side of things. As well, our first success was, of course, selling the first HP 3D printer, in India, and it was difficult because kind of super new, super high tech, and very few takers for that technology. So having spent around 4 years, in the polymer side of things, I thought that I was really attracted towards the possibilities in metal, right? Because I'm a metallurgist myself. I mean, I've kind of worked in that field. So that's why I was looking to see how I can upskill myself and gain formal education in metal additive manufacturing. And that's where I read about Penn State's course. They were offering, I think, the world's first masters in additive manufacturing and design. And a lot of my friends, even my family, told me that, boss, this is super specialization. I mean, you're going into something which I don't think you'll be able to come back. So that was a moment of truth for me. I said, yes, this is the technology I want to dedicate at least the better of my life. So I was fortunate enough to get like a fully funded offer from Penn State. I did my studies there, research there, interned at Exact Metal, as Parth said, and also started a small stint at General Motors. So I was leading the additive industrialization efforts at GM Michigan, for a while, and because of personal and family reasons, I had to move back to India in 2020. But so far, additive is nothing but as a great teacher for us, especially who are mechanical engineers or any engineer, right? You're very limited to or you're not privy to an automotive manufacturer's product development lifecycle, or an aerospace manufacturer's product development lifecycle. So with this company, or with this industry, we have a sneak peek into what is coming next, right? For example, if Tata is releasing a next EV vehicle, we know about it. If maybe FMCG company is releasing a new product, we know about it. So you are already at the forefront of innovation with 3D printing and additive manufacturing, and obviously other rapid manufacturing technologies. But with this position, you're also privy to what's next in the industry. Like investment wise, there are people investing heavily right now in EV, and I think all of us here, including Dr. Saab, Aditya, Abhishek, Raja, all of us knew this EV revolution coming 3 years back, because we had a lot of requests for prototyping, low volume manufacturing, for EV. So yeah, that's my journey. Thanks.
Thank you, Priyesh. So my first question, I think, is to Dr. Agarwal. You spoke about your journey, and you spoke about your challenges. What we'd like to know is what motivated you to get into into 3D printing or start a service bureau at a time when no one was doing it. There was no precedence. And I would assume not a lot of opportunities as well. So, what was your motivation behind starting it?
Well, see, I left India in 1988, so there was no Pepsi, there was no Coke, there was no LG, there was no Samsung. Okay. I don't know how many of you were even born back then. Okay. In '88, India was still largely a licensed Raj country, okay. And most of the companies were nationalized. Okay. In fact, today most IITians get 1 crore plus salary. I couldn't even get a job. Okay, and that's the truth. Okay. Because I refused to go for interviews at PSUs like BHEL and SAIL. Okay. So, of course, but back then, in a lorry, like today kids go to Infosys, we used to take a chartered plane and go to US. Okay. That was the story of IITians. So, obviously, I ended up in US. But then Manmohan Singh's so-called liberalization in '92, right, that led to a lot of changes. Pepsi came in, IBM came in, and Coke and LG and whatnot. So I used to come to India and in the mid '90s, maybe for on personal visits. So I had gotten into this technology as part of my PhD from 1990 to '94. So during that period, I also used to interact with small companies in the US, and so they used to provide these services to the General Motors and Ford and stuff. Right? So around 96, 97, 98, I saw that, there was a Hyundai Santro car. Wow. LG was making washing machines in India. Wow. So I said, "Arey yaar, ye log agar ye sab kar rahe hain, so they need prototypes, right? So chalo yaar, let's somewhere that Marwadi, I'm a Agarwal Marwadi, right? So doing all that research and R&D at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base on composites and stuff like that. I said, okay, let's go to India and see, try it out for 3 years. So came back and, well, it was a revelation. I mean, I thought these guys were making Hyundai Santro and LG was making washing machines. But after I came back, I realized that they're only doing the design, but they're actually validating their products in Korea and Japan. They're not actually validating their products in India. So I stuck around, and fortunately, a few other companies like Mahindra was making Scorpio, and Tata was trying to troubleshoot its Indica and went on to Indica V2. So somewhere, I mean, I would say, yeah, one thing led to another, struggled, but continued to strive along. So yeah, I mean, that's what led to my coming back is, I said, wow, Hyundai Santro and LG washing machine, and Pepsi and Coke and McDonald's burgers. So that wasn't happening when I left in '88. I mean, we were still buying a thing called Campa Cola. I don't know how many of you have heard from your elder brothers or your dad. So, I mean, Thumbs Up is still there, but there was another drink called Campa Cola. Okay. So good. It's been a great journey, great fun. Indian industry has did support us very well, thanks to the Tatas and the Mahindras and the Whirlpools. People in these companies really supported. I mean, Aditya will remember, we used to have a gentleman in Whirlpool, Ranjangaon by name Vikas Malhotra.
Yes.
I mean, these people, this gentleman, a person named Shrikant at Mahindra, and a gentleman named Dhananjay Dongre and N.K. Vaidya, who's still there at Tata Motors. Okay. These people actually said, Dr. Saab Kariya, we will give you work. And even if you fail, it's all right with us. I remember in 2007, everybody was doing plastic. Aditya was doing plastic, I was doing plastic, Paresh Bhai was doing plastic. Imaginarium had just come in and started doing some plastic. I remember people like Dongre and Shrikant sir saying, "Arey, Dr. Saab, sab koi plastic karo yaar. Metal to do na," because these guys are going to Acitec in Germany for an engine or a transmission housing, and paying good money to Acitec for even one number of transmission housing. They said, "What about metal? Hamara engine or transmission bhi to hota hai." So we said, okay. Then I said, we will do metal, but aap support karoge. And these gentlemen said, we will support you. We know you will fail. I like somebody mentioned about porosity. I think Ankit talked about porosity, right? Or Priyesh just talked about porosity. So we said, yeah, we will do casting. We will fail, but sir, आप support करिएगा. And I'm very thankful that they did support. I remember the first casting we made. I mean, my God, it was supposed to be a long piece, but it came out as a lump. Okay. So companies did support a lot, I would say, and that really helped us to keep doing new things. Okay, so as companies would support you, you would say, all right, let's do this also because the customer needs it. Right? I mean, we were all, at least Aditya was not, but I was very this thing because I had come from with a PhD in solid freeform fabrication, rapid prototyping, and I was like, there is no way I'll ever do CNC machining. We used to call it subtractive prototyping. But then we were losing business to China and Malaysia and so on, right? Because they were doing CNC machining of plastic and so on. Finally, I said, to hell with it. Let's do subtractive also. Somewhere I had become a businessman more than a technologist, I guess. And I said, Dhanda, Dhanda. I mean, all of you remember Shah Rukh Khan's movie, Rais. Dhande mein sab chalta hai, right? So we also started doing CNC prototyping. So yeah, today I've learned my lesson that, you do what's right for the customer. Okay. Embrace technology. In India especially, you got to look at it. You can't just say, let me bring Velo 3D. Okay. I mean, today. Does it make economic sense? Does your customer require it? Will he pay for it? Will you make money out of it? Right? If not immediately, over a longer period. So you got to sometimes marry the traditional with modern and customize it for Indian landscape. And that's a very valuable lesson I've learned. Is customization of a bouquet or a suite of technologies for India. And so that's my 2 cents worth of stuff here. Thank you.
So Aditya ji, would you say your motivations were similar coming from? But I know you were predominantly in the mold and tooling industry, and then also with an education background in plastics. Was your motivation similar? And what was your reason to get into this industry?
So, Parth, so it was actually a chance, 1 semester course in the US during my plastics technology education that happened to be on prototyping. And we got to, dirty our hands, work on a SLA machine. And as chance would have it, my first job in Singapore happened to be again in a rapid prototyping company. So I got on the job training in prototyping and got to learn from our seniors that time as to how prototyping is done and what we what we call in India jugaad, that there is a method of manufacturing everything, but we really need to find out how to make a prototype. Prototype is very unique, so we need to select the right process for the application, and then make the part. So what intrigued me again, coming back to the motivation, was that being from a business background, always wanted to get into business. And in India that time, this entire technology was at its nascent stage. So thought it would be a good idea to get into it. And so that is where we started our journey. But my domain being always in plastics, so we've stuck to our experience in plastics technology, and we've whatever we've done, we've developed or adopted technologies that give output in plastic materials. And so CNC prototyping also was on a variety of different plastic materials. And gradually we've grown into contract manufacturing for injection mold, various plastic products. So we've tried to add to our experience in this area. And of course, there is no textbook or rule book for prototyping. So we've been fortunate that customers have paid us for failures in the beginning, and so that's how hand-holding happened, and we were able to carry on from there. Right.
Right, sir. My next question is actually for Priyesh. You interned with a metal AM company. You did your education quite recently, a few years back, in additive manufacturing. What made you come back to India? When I'm sure you saw the industry, the service bureau, and the AM industry in the US. What brought you back here?
To be very honest, my mother is the one who brought me back to India. She was not keeping very well, so she needed somebody to support her. But even apart from that, I think the opportunity here, India, as even Mukesh sir and Aditya sir said, that it's a growing manufacturing economy right now. So the US and the Europe, you have big companies, right, where you have the chance to be a very small part of a large machinery, right? And in India, the impact you can make, because the technology is at the cusp of its, if you see the Gartner's curve, right? Gartner's hype cycle curve. I think if in the US additive, is already in the plateau of productivity, in India, it is still in the slope of enlightenment, So that is where the largest opportunity lies, because you, personally and professionally can make a significant impact in people's and companies, life cycle, product life cycle. And the second thing was, apart from Make in India, there were a lot of homegrown startups. Like, for example, I've been an avid follower of Moin and, the co-founders who work at Agnikul, for example, right? There was a company called, Relativity Space, as I think Ankit also mentioned earlier, right? And also another space company based out of the Brooklyn Navy Yard in New York, where I had some chance to, and they were making rocket engines in a garage, right? So the fact that this technology was democratizing, right, manufacturing, because if you want to make rocket engines, your welding has to be, to an extent which is super capital intensive, right? You have to have robotic welding, you have to have inspection, right? With the power of additive, that's not there, right? And plus, the second thing is, in the US and Europe as well, a lot of funding comes from DARPA or DoD, Department of Defense, right? And as a non-citizen, okay, you cannot work on those projects. And the cream projects, right, where you're developing a new alloy, you're consolidating parts, you're maybe helping reduce, 15 grams of, because one of my colleagues was, involved in, all of you all might have heard about this new telescope, right, which is from Pratt and Whitney and United, together, right? There were more than 1,300 parts in that, which were 3D printed, right? And one of my colleagues who had, a similar experience, similar profile to me, got, that opportunity only because he was a US citizen, and I didn't get it because I was not a citizen. So that also was something, which was an emotional this thing, कि यार नहीं यार, मतलब जो भी है Indian है, जो भी है India में आके करेंगे, whatever we can contribute, right, to the economy, to the space programs here, as Ankit said, and to also a lot of budding entrepreneurs. I mean, there are so many new companies which are coming up with their new products, with amazing investments from, American-based banks or Singapore-based banks, right? It is so satisfying to help them, convert their idea into a product, right? The gratification or, the satisfaction which comes with it is amazing. So I hope I have answered your question, but in the US, I would have been a very small fish in a large pond. Here, hopefully, I can be a relatively larger fish in probably make the pond large as well. Thanks.
Right, Priyesh. So off the back of that, I want to go to Raja, and I want to know, do you feel the same? And what do you think the challenges are for service bureaus right now in India. And it's a two-part question also for you. What do you think the government is doing, or you think is the government doing enough to help service bureaus?
Yeah. So when it comes to challenges for the service bureaus, I know I speak more from the perspective of an integrated service bureau. Okay. Because I also, as I was mentioning, I do CNC and all. For 3D printing, the beauty about 3D printing is its efficiency. There's no doubt about it, because the material is in one standard powder form, right? For all kinds of designs, use that for a given type of material, I would say. Use that same powder, right? And you have it in inventory, and you just use it, till you consume that, and then you buy another set of powder, another 100 kgs of powder, and goes on. So in 3D printing, I personally I haven't seen a lot of challenges. I would say the beauty about this technology is how simple this is, right? Uh, that way it is truly democratizing manufacturing to a massive extent. Just that it's a bit expensive and it's a bit time taking, so it's not taking off the way we envisioned it. But I'm sure there comes a time when, just like how in 1990s Mukesh was mentioning, everybody was doing on drafting, 2D drafting on this big desks and all that. And then now everybody is using CAD software. So I think 10 years, 20 years down the line, I'm quite confident, because of the conveniences of us. No force on earth can stop a product whose time has come, or an idea whose time has come. And I believe this, and the time has come for 3D print technology, for the sheer convenience and the sheer removal of. See, we humans always, if you look at, I'm just talking about more of an economics here, but then if you look at all the innovations, right, in the world, all the innovations are oriented towards making ourselves lazy or adding convenience to our lives. Okay, be it a calculator in the place of mathematics, right? In a way, it's making us much more, I would say, unproductive in a way. Like we spend most of the time, when like using, in terms of using our energies, we try to conserve energy. So we invented wheel, we invented fire, we invented calculator, we invented computers. This is to conserve our energy, our mental and physical energies. So that with 3D printing, I'm sure 3D printing is one of the technologies which help us conserve a lot of energies, add a lot of efficiency, productivity to the whole process. The reason why I'm saying is, I hardly spend 20% of my time on 3D printing. The team runs the show. It's going on pretty fine. Of course, unless until you're talking about a new product design and all those ones, that Ankit is more focused on that one as objectifying, but we are not much focused on that aspect of the business. But I spend 80% of my time on CNC, let's say, on the molds. And if you look at the landscape of that industry, it's an absolute pain to get a product on time. Literally absolute pain. You, for every order, you need to buy the raw materials, you need to buy the tools, bars, rods, sheets, and those are not available. The variety of raw materials are not available. Some material will be in Mumbai, some material in Bangalore, and then the shipping delays, breakdowns. Because you're asking about challenges, so I'm saying all these things. And then our guy doesn't go into the details. He misses on some points on tolerances and microns. For example, of course, we are now building. There are processes and the root cards and all that we design, but ultimately the machinist out there, you can't control that person, right? No matter, it's not robotics there. At the end of the day, the machinist, who has to program, who has to put the settings and all that. Why I'm saying this is I'm doing a lot of molds, and for medical, my major focus is medical. It's taking me 2 months. I'll give a simple example. I made a chassis of one medical device. It's a pretty decent size chassis. In 3D printing, SLA, I got it overnight. Okay. But then, of course, they need it in 500 pieces, and I have to make it, 500 sets of the chassis. I can't do it using 3D printing. Okay. So I went for obviously making mold, right? Now, the kind of challenges we faced were, I would say crazy, because the ecosystem was not there in India yet for a very strong manufacturing ecosystem, I would say. Because I made the mold. I'm giving a current scenario. Now I wanted a 1,000 ton or 800 ton molding machine. Okay, most of the machines, molding machines, are 200 ton, 250 ton, 180 ton in India. There are few molding machines which are 800 ton, 700 ton, 1,000 ton. From what I understand of the landscape. So there I had to wait for another 1 week to get that one machine. And then that guy said that I can't do ABS 5 retardant material. because it spoils the barrel, damages the barrel, because flight retardant is ready to, which is added to the ABS, and then it does damage that because of the friction or because of this, it does damage the barrel. So with a lot of we had to figure out a way to get that going. We found finally one customer, one vendor who can do that. So many such challenges are there. In terms of all these challenges, I would put it is a depth of ecosystem, right? That's why I've been telling, like Ankit was mentioning, we need a policy for manufacturing, not for additive manufacturing. Additive manufacturing is one of the cogs in the whole manufacturing ecosystem. It's like CNC is one, forging is one, right? And the molding is one, maybe casting is one, right? And then additive manufacturing. Ultimately what matters to the customer is the product should come out, So additive manufacturing is a newer technology, that's it, but it is one cog in the whole ecosystem called manufacturing. So government, what is government doing? I would say it's trying their policies, but then policies are again, there should be a department, there is a manufacturing, I think MSME is there, but then there should be dedicated policy for manufacturing, dedicated policy for tool rooms, because these are the ones, every product that you see in the world should come out of a tool room, let's say, right? At least any physical object, metal, plastics, right? Maybe ceramics also to a certain extent, everything, be it extrusion, be it the joining, be it the welding, be it the forging, be it the casting, right? Everything is part of the tool room activity. So there should be dedicated policy, dedicated support, and for this manufacturing ecosystem is what I would say. And this is lacking. It's purely the national additive manufacturing policies. It's crap, I would say. It should be national manufacturing. Yeah.
I was just going to come to that, and I was going to ask you, maybe just if you could spend 1 minute of time quickly to share your opinion on the national additive manufacturing strategy.
Right. So see, national additive manufacturing strategy, I've gone through the details. Skill development, I appreciate that. There is, because additive manufacturing, because I see that government wants to leapfrog to Industry 4.0 because they didn't achieve much in this traditional manufacturing landscape, because we lost badly to China, and then the whole manufacturing industry followed out in India big time, right? So I kind of sense that government doesn't want the same thing to happen in the newer technologies, right? But then if I look at it, right, skill development is good, but machine manufacturing, where is the support for the made in India 3D printers, okay, or made in India materials? I didn't see that. Of course, I didn't go to the fine print, but in the broad framework that they've given, I didn't see that happening, right? They always talk about installing machines in the schools, installing machines in the universities, installing machines everywhere. What does installing machines lead to, right? It leads to money going out of the country to a German, let's say US machine, I mean, now China, they're not buying, but still going to China, Germany, Japan, US, So, and then that's where the cream was also. And then they lock the machine to the materials, so we keep on buying their materials. So basically, the entire cream that the government is putting is going out, basically, helping the other countries and other economies. We're just playing the role of a service bureau, which is not that difficult. In fact, operating a CNC machine is a lot more difficult than operating a 3D printer, right? So where is the skill? Where is the value that is getting generated? You're just putting the powder, you're just putting the design. It's like a 2D printers, You just print it, and then government giving subsidy for. I mean, I'm sorry to say that, but it's like government giving subsidy to put all the 2D printers in all the. So there should be money spent on new product development. Like that is where the cream is. DFAM is where the cream is for additive manufacturing. There should be policy for that. There should be a support for that one, or there should be good support for machine manufacturers. And that is also not present from what I've seen. So I think once we proposed, what is this? Last time we met, right? We wanted this to be part of the PLI scheme. When drones were part of the PLI scheme, why not 3D printers?
Yes.
Give some subsidies to those companies, manufacturers, like divide by zero, right? Right. We are as good as let's say Flashforge, we're as good as an Ultimaker. Then why Indian brands are not reaching that level of if foreign brand, because of lack of support for the Indian made in India. Even the customers also made in India. Even our own customers don't have a proper opinion on made in India 3D printers. And it becomes a chicken and egg situation. That is the biggest problem here. The chicken and egg situation is that unless until you buy it, they don't have money to improve it, right? Unless until they improve it, buyers are not going to buy it. So where is that? Someone should break that what takes a virtuous cycle of downward spiral, in the ecosystem, and then that is the government which should break that one, pull up those Indian manufacturers, and then fund those manufacturers by giving subsidies or whatever till they reach a level where they're at par with the global players, and then it's a level playing field. Globalization was never a level playing field. Globalization was for the rich countries to bombard or to dump on the third world countries. That is what globalization was all about. Level playing field was never there. So government should play a role, which China did fantastically well. I mean, amazingly well. Crazy. I would appreciate the government there for doing that. Our government should also do that. Is what my opinion is. I hope this addresses your question on this. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, we'll just Dr. Agarwal, please just hold that thought. We'll just quickly move to Abhishek for a moment. We'll come back to you. Abhishek, Raja spoke about SMEs and MSMEs, and there are some very large service bureaus here amongst us. But as someone who's just very new to the industry, to the service bureau industry, what's your take on the challenges that SMEs are facing, and what do you expect from the government, or what do you expect in terms of policy?
If you see the SMEs, the first challenge which we face is the initial capex to have that setup. So if you see in a 3D printing, with every day there are new advancements in terms of the hardware, in terms of the material, and in terms of the software as well. But having that initial capex to support your customers with all these technologies is what SME lack, because SME or the small companies or the newly started companies may not have that financial power to put all of this different equipment. So this is the first thing what I think where the SME have a disadvantage in terms of the initial capex. Second thing what I feel is the non-standard service charges, or sometimes you see we charge as per the weight or as per the part complexity. So sometimes to win the case, the large service bureaus may cut down the cost, so that non-standard charges or that something hamper the new companies or new SMEs who are into presenting the services vertical. So I think there should be a policy that may benefits all the service bureaus. There should be some guidelines and strategy how you could charge in terms of the services, in terms of the parts. So and I think we have seen the national identity policy, and there is no support in terms of the building that particular infrastructure to cater to the additive manufacturing service. We only talk about the adoption of the AM, where we can use and leverage the additive manufacturing. We talk about to decrease the plastic waste or the CO2 emission, everything. But we never talk how we should build that infrastructure in that particular production or the manufacturing belt. So we our national policies should support to build that infrastructure which could cater the services. Another the beauty of additive manufacturing comes with the unique optimization and DFM. So I think there should be a support to have understanding how exactly the generative designs work, and where when we get any DFM inquiry, the proving time for that particular application, the output of DFM, there are thousands of output, and the proving time is much more longer for that particular application. So that sustaining thing that should be included in policy.
Right. Thanks, Abhishek. So yes, Dr. Agarwal, you had something to add or to what Raja was saying?
Look,
I saw your hand being raised.
See, Raja and Abhishek ji, my take is very straightforward. okay, why there is a PLI for drone, not for additive manufacturing. That's with very good reason. Additive manufacturing doesn't present enough potential for the government of India to create a PLI. Okay, it's too small. Okay. What is it? 500 crore, 1000 crore, all of us put together, machine, materials, services, all put together. Why would government have an initiative on that? Okay. I remember back in the 90s, when this technology was largely used for prototyping by General Motors and Ford and so on. Right? DARPA, as Priyesh mentioned, used to fund a lot of work. I mean, I was part of a lot of the DARPA programs. Okay. And there was a gentleman by name Bill Koblenz, and Bill always used to say in the US, okay, that look, until we find a killer application for this technology, okay, rapid prototyping, and that's what we used to call it back then, okay, is not going to take off. Okay. I don't know how many of you know this. Laser scanners, where you scan on your supermarket, right, was there in the 1970s. Okay. A company called NCR, most of you would know NCR for actually making the ATM machines, had pioneered the concept of laser scanning. Okay. But it didn't take off. They had the technology, NCR, but they couldn't find a way to actually bring it into the mainstream, right? So then came up this supermarket concepts, and then they realized, wow, wait a second, if we could place a barcode on each product, and then the laser could scan it, and that was it. That's when the technology took off. So Bill always used to, Bill Koblenz at DARPA used to say, until we find a killer application for this technology, it's not going to take off. Why is there a PLI for drone, not for additive manufacturing? Drone industry was in fact nowhere back in 2000, 2001. I used to be part of a program with Professor Rodham Narasimhan at IISc Bangalore and General Sundaram and so on. We were trying to, the first MICAV program that happened in 2004, 2005 at Gen World Campus in Bangalore, I was part of that. MICAV is micro air vehicle. Okay. So in fact, additive manufacturing was there before that in India, 3D printing, rapid prototyping. But today there's a PLI for drone, but not for AIM, and it won't be until we create enough mass, economic mass, job generation mass. Okay. The government is not going to, they may come out, MeitY may come out, MeitY is Ministry of Electronic and IT, and put together a national mission roadmap and then fund some money, and one building will come up in Hyderabad, and there'll be 20 machines, like you said. And ultimately, it's going to be like any other government tool room, right? But industry-wise, PLI, that's a very good one. Okay. PLI is chosen only for those industries, textile, automotive, auto components, drones. Okay. Until we have a mass, okay, a momentum in this technology and industry, it's not going to happen. Okay, guys, you can keep saying that, oh, why drone, why not us? We are not even represented properly, in fact. Or like Priyesh said, toy industry. I mean, it's huge. Okay. I was at Belgaum, okay, where Arvind Meligari's put up the first toy SEZ in Koppal near Hampi. All of you should go. It's a beautiful, lovely place. So, I mean, it's huge, right? You have to present to the government an opportunity to say that, hey, look, there is so much. What's happening instead is we all meet our community at these kind of events. We create some companies, but we are not finding that application in India. Okay. In the US and Europe, even in China, right? Companies are producing in millions shoe soles using carbon type of technologies or other 3D printing. Is it happening in India? No. I mean, I beg to differ with Raja, who said, oh, it's largely a prototyping. Not in the US and Europe, and even in China for that matter. It's being used for mass manufacturing today. In India, it's just not happening. Until that happens, okay, don't ask for a PLI. Okay. Figure out a way where we will bring this to the mainstream. Okay. It's still not in the mainstream. Okay. I mean, look at it. Even the Whirlpools and the Mahindras who have been using this for prototyping for 20 years are not willing to take this mainstream. Okay. And until it comes to the mainstream, there's drones, right? Once Punjab police and the Delhi police said, okay, we're going to buy 5,000, okay, it went into the mainstream. Otherwise, it was just a toy, right? Until we find a way to bring additive manufacturing into the mainstream. And everybody has been talking about aerospace for the last 5-7 years, especially in the metal additive manufacturing. Gentlemen, where is the aerospace in India? We do a certain amount of precision machining, right? I mean, Quest Aequs is one of the best companies, in fact, in my opinion. They have been making landing gears and a lot of other things for Boeing and Airbus, commercial aircrafts, not even defense aircrafts. Again, you should go to Aequs plant in Belgaum and see what kind of work they do for Boeing and Airbus. Okay. Or we make large structures like fuselage and aerostructures, but we are not actually doing functional, unique, additively manufactured, or even conventionally manufactured additive manufacturing components. So until we do that, we all must come together and have some kind. These forums are good. I was just seeing the attendance list here. It's again ghar ki kheti, I call it. Okay, we are all there. We are backslapping each other. Hey Paresh bhai, hey Aditya. Until we take this out and take it into the mainstream and bring the mainstream into our community, okay, we are not going to make any headway. I'm sorry if I've been brutally forthright here.
Be honest.
Thank you.
Right, sir.
Beautiful point, sir. Maybe just can add one point here. Very beautiful insight, sir. And I kind of see that great head speaking out there. Thank you for sharing this beautiful insights. I mean, my perspective is coming more from the fact that the government is anyway spending the money. And can they put in another like 100 crore that they have put for NCAM, additive manufacturing policy. And this Atal Innovation Mission, they spent a lot of money putting up machines in the schools and all that, which was a utter flop, by the way. Atal School Initiative, whatever it's called. What I'm saying is, in India, government doesn't give money to the private. They always think that they can set it up, but then it becomes another tool room, highly inefficient, not that well utilized, right? So when you're spending that money, better spend it on private parties who can use that capital much more efficiently, who can come up with some breakthrough innovations, than spending that money putting up these tool rooms everywhere. Even for that matter, AM tool room. Now, what we're seeing is what AM tool rooms are coming up. Like even if you see the CTTs, CITDs of the India, I mean, they're competing with the private tool rooms for customer orders. I don't understand why should they do the tool room activity when there are people like us, like you, with great experience coming from US and setting up those tool rooms. Support should be given to private parties to do that. That is happening in many parts, which unfortunately is not happening in India. It's always about why can't we set up? Why can't government? Government shouldn't be in the business of doing business. I'm more speaking from that perspective. When you have fund, when you dedicated a fund, better give it to a private parties than you set up your own centers and that stuff. So
We'll move to Priyesh. Priyesh has raised his hand. Priyesh, 1 minute. We have to move to the next question.
Sure, absolutely, God. So just one thing, I think all of us are speaking about government policies, what the government can do to, help us. I completely agree with Dr. Agrawal's point that, I think the gun is on our heads, right? Do we have the potential to show a market big enough for the government? And one thing which I'm understanding here is all of us are talking about making here in India and selling here in India. Whereas in my opinion, and Dr. Saab and Aditya sir and Raja, please correct me if I'm wrong, the biggest opportunity here is making in India at Indian prices with Europe and America at their quality. And additive can do that, right? Because not only additive, because we have CNC machines, we have a tool room, we have other rapid manufacturing activities as well. What we've understood is everybody in the world is right now adopting a China plus one strategy, right? I'm somebody who's very optimistic, so I tend to care less about the problems and maybe look more at the opportunities, right? So the China plus one problem is what we have to attack. Who's going to be the plus one? Is it going to be Vietnam? Is it going to be Bangladesh? Is it going to be, maybe Thailand? Thailand is also a very strong competitor here. Or is it going to be India? And the only way for us to get there is by two things. One is unlock those killer applications for additive. Like for example, today, all of us know there are a lot of drone companies which are using 3D printing for end use. Jewelry and dental are the only two companies who are using 3D printing for production. And even Parth can attest to that because he's serving the jewelry industry. I'm sure, Parth, your jewelry printers are running full, right? You will never have a issue of keeping them full. Why? Because they are using it for production. As soon as the terminology changes from prototype to production, that is where the magic happens.
Right. Completely agree, Priyesh. Aditya ji,
Just
1 minute for you as well. Then we move to the next question,
small,
which is the next question is for you as well. So yes, please go on.
just one small point. I 100% agree that, you know, unless we get moved from prototyping to end use parts, we are not going to be able to make an impact using 3D printing technology. But if we really talk about additive manufacturing, service bureau, where we are all coming from, we are all service bureaus, where we are catering to different needs of the industry by having a range of applications available for them. I think here the government cannot help us really. Here, unless we help ourselves, we will not be able to move forward. So where are we lacking? We are lacking in training and education internally as well as for our customers. So even today, after so many years, a customer still demands some inexpensive solution for a fully functional part. So I think somewhere we are to blame. I mean, we don't take the pains to try and educate the customer as to what technology can offer, what kind of part, what is the application. So this is one aspect. And second, of course, like in agriculture, we have the MSP, so minimum support price, has to be there in our industry as well, where it needs to be standard. So we can't call it a support price, at least a standard price, where everyone kind of offers a standardized price so that the customer is aware, and that is what will help the industry grow and be able to help and sustain. And then, of course, we grow to a level where we can expect governmental support as well.
Right, sir. Moving on to the next question, the next sort of topic, which is for you, Aditya ji.
Yeah.
Recently, I think a few months back, you commissioned a new machine, a very expensive piece of equipment. So what we are seeing, and I see that from personal experience as well, I'm sure everyone agrees over here, that service bureaus are having to keep themselves updated, the technology updated, and that can prove to be quite capital intensive. And as Ankit Sahu pointed out earlier this morning, access to capital is a huge challenge for startups in India, and why not just startups, for a lot of companies. So how do you think companies can deal with this issue of keeping technology updated as well as facing this capital crunch?
So yeah, that's a very valid point, Parth. So what I can only say here is, like, the 3D printing machines, the 3D printing manufacturing equipment is very similar to the PC industry, where it keeps on upgrading every 6 months, and every 2 years or 1 year, year and a half down the line, we see the same equipment which was procured a year and a half ago has lost 20-30% of its value. I think in metal machines, Ankit and Mukesh ji will agree that it is even more. I mean, more low-cost machines, alternatives have come up in the last 2-3 years. So it is when do you decide to make the investment is very important. Have you gathered enough information about the market? Do you have a captive market, which is like a luxury? But if not, do you have enough information about the market? Are we going to be able to sustain the particular investment, is the question. Availability of finance and the other aspects which are always going to be there, for any industry, not specific to our industry. But we need to have more information and have to have a method where we are able to time it right. And if we are able to time it right, is the only, and then hope for the best. But jokes apart, I think hard information is something where one will benefit. If you, like, for example, we invested in the HP machine. So yes, there is a trend for people moving from prototypes to end use parts, and it is a known fact that HP polyamide 12 powder can be used to manufacture end use parts. So the strength and the speed of the machine enables people to do that. So yeah, so you need to and it comes over time. You have to one has to gather that data over a period of time, and then take the plunge.
Right. Yes, sir. Dr. Agarwal, please.
I just wanted to highlight, and I think I saw some of the chats, question and answer. So somebody is also put a question saying that is it not just these low cost prototyping things that is actually killing the market in industry? And I think the topic has kind of come up here. I would like to say that I'm guilty of it too, no doubt about it. And I wish I had listened to about 15 years back a good gentleman who's no more with us. Aditya ji, of course, knows him. My colleague, my Aditya ji's partner, Sunil Jain. I wish I had. Sunil ji used to say very clearly that Mukesh ji, we are offering high technology. Let us not offer it at such roadside prices, you know. And I wish we had paid attention to what Sunil ji. He was, I think, much more wiser than all of us. And so even today, it's not too late. I mean, I have not been part of the medical offerings, you know, this making the skull models and making these jaw models and all that stuff. But I know a friend who started in Bangalore and then he wound up, right, after 5-6 years of this. I had learned my lesson by that time, and I used to tell him that don't offer these models, okay, using these homegrown FDM machines. Even if you're using them, look at the value proposition for your end customer. Don't look at it only from your X kilogram of my material. This is the price of my material. This is my electricity. This is my rental, and this is my this. Guys, we are not in that business. We should look at what is the value proposition for the customer here. Okay, and that's what drone industry did. You know, I mean, you think that making of a drone was very expensive? Come on, it was not. But the drone industry looked at the value proposition that it was offering. I mean, whether you talk about Idea Forge or any of these other guys, right? So we didn't do that. Okay, and I do take some responsibility for it. Maybe not entirely, but having been part of the industry, I do take some responsibility. But it's better late than never. Even now, I think there is time for us to pull up our socks and say, we are in a technology field. We are not in a tomato potato industry. We should not be offering some of these services that we are offering at throwaway prices and calculating our prices only based on a kilogram of material, labor, blah, 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 and say, okay. See, you look at it as a value proposition for the customer and say, this is what is the value proposition for the customer, and that's why this prototype or this model or this quantity should be valuable for him. And if we can do that, first and foremost, we need to improve the health of our companies, our industry, our technologies. The other question was, how do we get to this mass manufacturing? That's a real $1 million question. If we can regain our respectability, see, right now, if I go to Tata or Mahindra, they look at us as, oh, aap bhi kar sakte ho, wo bhi kar sakta hai, and it's like, it's a been there, done that technology. We need to regain the respect this technology has in overseas country. In India, this technology itself has lost its sheen in terms of the in front of the customer. So once he appreciates the total potency of this technology, he will come back and say, okay, you know, I want to do this using this technology. And
right.
We have to make a beginning somewhere on this. Thank you.
Right, sir. My next question is actually for Priyesh. Priyesh, much like your company's model, we see a lot of companies increasingly, in fact, working as service bureaus as well as machine and equipment resellers. Do you think there is perhaps some sort of conflict of interest in that?
Yeah, I mean, a very obvious answer to that is yes. I mean, I think the question is all about the timing, right? As a service bureau, I'm sure all of the gentlemen here in the panel will also agree that at some point of time, their largest customer has bought a machine, and then they didn't have enough orders to run their particular machine because they had probably bought that machine for a particular customer, right? So what we understand is, and this is what we've learned in the very early stages, of our journey, that we are a solution company. We are not a parts company. We are not a machine company. We don't want to be, selling piecemeal products, to the customer. So I'll give you an example of a customer, again, a locomotive customer, for example, in the southern region, where we started, offering them services. They took services from us for a couple of years and gave us good business, of course. And after a point of time, we went there proactively and told them that, boss, I think you're ready for a machine, right? And he said, oh yeah, of course, I think, because the volumes have been increasing and consistently increasing, right? In 3D printing or additive manufacturing, the problem is that our business depends on somebody who's going to make a prototype or a design, in his kind of project, right? With that change from proto to production, what will happen is we will have visibility. Like today, for example, if Aditya sir has invested into a machine, he knows that there is this market available, and he knows that, for example, this much volume of work X customer is doing. Even if I can get X% of the work, then my machine economics would be sorted, right? In the prototype industry, unfortunately, you won't be able to do that, right? So what we've understood is, even if the customer buys a machine, and if the application is end use, he will still need a service bureau. And that's, I think, that's the mother topic of this discussion, right? Is the service bureau relevant, right? If it's prototype, then maybe not after 5 years, because most of the big customers, talk about Hero, Mahindra, TML, the Mindas, all of them have their 3D printers. Even dental guys like Tutsi, Ampa Orthodontics, which a lot of you are also directly working with, have bought their own machine. So Ampa's actually journey is very is a nice template for all of us to learn, that they first developed 3 or 4 service bureaus and kept them loaded for like months and years, right? And seeing that, a lot of young entrepreneurs got excited and they invested into those machines, right? Low cost machines, right? And suddenly Ampa decided that, hey, we are going to buy our own machine, because now we have the funds, we've unlocked the application, and we have shown volume. What happens to the other 3 young, I forget the oldies, right? Forget the people who have established. What happens to new people who had bought the machine for them, right? So the relevance of service bureau will always stay there, because our job is to offer the variety. Our job is to make sure that we are with the customer from the first prototype to the millionth part. And that's our vision, even at Imaginarium, that we don't only give them 3D printing services, but we also have Haas machines. We also have I think Raja recently visited us with the CEO of AMTZ. We showed him our new facility, and it's always growing, right? That we are also moving into rapid manufacturing, MUD based like soft tooling production, right? So if you're only looking at, okay, yaar, maine printer le liya, I have money, $10,000, I'll buy a printer and somebody is going to feed my printer, then probably that business is not going to stay long. What is the problem you are solving for the customer? Are you doing something? As Mukesh sir said today, if you go to TML and Mahindra, they don't value us, they don't appreciate, they don't respect, because यार हम लोग जो कर रहे हैं वो लोग ने हमारे पास सीख लिया, राइट डॉक्टर साहब? वो लोग ने हमारे पास सीख लिया कैसे ये पार्ट बनाना है, ओरिएंटेशन कैसे करना है, और अभी खुद मशीन लेके बना रहे. The struggle or the challenge, I will not say struggle, the challenge with everybody of us here in the panel is how to constantly keep innovating or disrupting our business. Okay, I'll give you a small example. Mukesh Ambani, right? Mukesh Ambani, 7 years ago made a statement that Reliance will get out of the oil and gas business, right? And right now, more than 40% of the wealth which they have is from the J3 terminal in Jamnagar, oil extraction and supply and distribution. And that's when he started investing into Geo. So if you see Geo, and if you reverse it, it is oil, right? So data is the new oil. That was the whole concept. So I think we are in a similar predicament where we have to understand what kind of challenge we are solving for the customer. If it's just like a Xerox machine, he's sending a file, you're printing a part, you have to be ready that the customer can leave you anytime for price, for maybe local, because for example today we are in Mumbai, there is somebody for example in maybe Odisha, right? Even if the Odisha guy is offering 10-20% more, the customer will prefer because rapid prototyping, right? So they have that nervousness ke part aayega ki nahi Mumbai se, Mumbai mein hai kya ho gaya, kuch floods ho gaya, rains aa rahe, right? So I think, and that's when I think all of us here have to make peace with this, that this is going to happen, and that's why we made peace with this 10 years back, and that's why we had a kind of business to be with the customer throughout his or her journey of digital manufacturing. Right? We are not going to be restricting ourselves only to additive as well. We are going to be adding new kind of machines and ancillaries for manufacturing. And the goal for us has now moved on from additive manufacturing to rapid manufacturing. And I think Raja also is in a similar boat with us. We are probably sailing the same boat, together, because CNC machines, once you understand the recipe and the game, getting business for CNC is not an issue, right? Even Raja is nodding his head. I'm sure even Mukesh sir he has a nice setup of CNC machines. CNC ke liye dhanda lana is never going to be a challenge because it's very established. You have, people have been making CNC parts for a while, or competition, and it's very commoditized. The problem is there is no value addition in CNC, limited scope of value addition, right? And that is what makes me nervous. Like, I don't want to be in a business where there is no scope of value addition, because anybody with capital today, if Adani thinks that I want to get into 3D printing, like say usko laga ki he is to get into the 5G spectrum, he wants to get into 3D printing. What will stop Adani from having having a size of AM bureau, which all of us here together have? Nothing, just capital. So if we are in an industry where only capital is the block or the entry barrier, then we should probably think that, are we in the right industry? That's from my side.
True. Yeah. Right. Interesting insight, Priyesh. Aditya, I'll come to you. I'll just quickly go to Abhishek because he's been quiet for some time. Abhishek, as someone who is purely in the, educate me if I'm wrong, but someone who's purely in the service bureau model, what is your opinion on a company that acts as a service bureau as well as a machine reseller? What do you think? Is it a disadvantage or an advantage for a company like yours, which is purely a service bureau?
See, basically there are either OEMs or the resellers who sell the printer. So resellers have to have those printer in-house, like for demonstration and all. But when you supply your technology to any service bureau, like there should be a concept of OEM or a reseller. Like the utilization of their technology with that particular service bureau depends upon how we give the printer sales, right? So if you are a reseller, you give printer to service bureau, and at the same time you're catering to services in the same region, like you are playing on the both sides. So I think if the utilization of the printer of that service bureau goes up, ultimately the business will come to you in terms of the raw material, in terms of the AMC, spare parts and services. So it is not about the catering services. It is about the utilization of that particular technology. What service bureau trusts for you and invest in that technology. So I think it should be in consent of the OEMs or the machine sellers that whatever technology they put into a service bureau, it should be utilized at its fullest, and then for what reason, what actually solution it provides, what problem it solves, that will be like addressed. So they should
Right.
help us, to like make the manufacturing well, educating them with the technology and how that can be adopted in their product lifecycle.
Right. We'll just take one last point on this from Aditya ji.
Yeah, hi. So I have a slightly different take on this. So I would tend to agree a bit with Abhishek that if one has the mandate for selling machines, and like Priyesh said, that if you're creating a customer and selling it to an OEM, it is to that extent it is understood. But once you have the mandate to sell machines and a reseller is selling it to a service bureau as well, and then continues to provide services, that I think it provides unequal competition to the industry. So it is, it becomes equivalent to something like when universities and other government aided institutes buy machinery at very low cost, and or rather free, and then they provide services at lower cost. Earlier used to happen quite a bit, now it's reduced to some extent, but as the market has grown, we don't feel that impact that much. So I think that it's a very fine line, and OEMs who are machine manufacturers need to be careful when they select resellers, so that this conflict of interest needs to be avoided. It is very easy to hang on to a low hanging, to try and catch a low hanging fruit for early gains, but in the long run, at least in the interest of a service bureau that is investing their own capital or sourced capital, whatever may be the case, the whole business model doesn't get justified.
Right, sir. If just for the panelists here, we see that most of our attendees have actually stayed on. We haven't had a lot of people leaving. So with your permission, if we could continue with this interesting conversation for maybe another 10, 15 minutes. Yes, sir, Dr. Agarwal.
On this point of conflict of interest, I mean,
yes, sir.
I think this is a very large issue, and this needs to be nipped in the bud. And this, obviously, this can only be done by you and me and others who buy machines. I have fought, and I will name names now. Okay, I have fought tooth and nail in trying to with HP and their reseller and the way that the whole industry has gone about the whole MJF process. I've really fought. Okay, but it doesn't go anywhere because there are others who keep buying those machines, right? Right now we are in the market for our second AM machine, metal. Okay, and we have point blank said two of the companies, okay, don't even knock on a door. Show us a period of 3 years. For a period of 3 years, I need to see that you are not in services business at all for 3 years, and then I will consider your machine. Okay. So they're like, oh, one of them says, oh, we are going to get out. We are going to get out. I said, well, you guys have been talking about getting out for 5 years now. Okay. And so show me that for 3 continuous years, I need to see you no longer in services, purely in machine sales. Then let's talk about buying your machine. If we all see, service bureaus do buy a lot of machines. I think between Imaginarium, 3D PD, Marco Polo, and Think3D and Objectify and everybody. If we will put our foot down, guys, I'm telling you, these guys will have to exit the services segment. One of them argues with me saying that, oh, how do you expect me to do benchmarking? Benchmarking, you do benchmarking for 1 month, 2 months, for 5 parts, 10 parts, not for 2 years. Come on, for heaven's sake, right? So we need to really, I mean, we service bureaus, somebody put a question in Q&A that should we not have a service bureau association? And I think that's a thing that Aditya and I have talked about for many years, but it has unfortunately not happened because we all agree to disagree, which is good, but we still should come together and lay down some rules so that This is a huge conflict of interest thing. Some service machine manufacturers and their dealers who get a lot of benefits of AMC, lower cost of material and other things, competing with a service bureau who buys at full price, okay, material and machine and AMC. I mean, the big devil
That's
in
the
this
killer.
room is
It's
AMC.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody accounts for that, mind you.
Right,
So,
sir.
yeah, thank you.
Priyesh, quickly, 30 seconds. You're on mute, Priyesh. You're on mute.
I'm sorry. So Aditya ji and Mukesh ji, I completely agree. So in the US, right, there is this concept called AMUG, Additive Manufacturing Users Group, right? So what happens is, the people with desktop FDMs and SLAs, they have a nice association. They have their own small association. What is happening is, people like us who have multiple industrial machines, right? We don't talk about standardization at all, right? Like for example, now Aditya sir is, for example, has bought an HP machine, right? What is the minimum kind of a selling price we should agree, right? And we should then obviously commit, and dedicate, our efforts to keeping that. But if that happens, that will help us, generate more reserve funds, right? And reserve funds, जैसे आपने बोला मुकेश sir, will help you when your machines break down. Like today, the biggest nervousness which comes for us, like we have 26 industrial grade machines, right? Even if one machine breaks down, I know that my P&L for that month and the coming month is going to take a severe hit. Even if you try to consider it in the depreciation, right? Or, how in whatever financial form you want to do it. But I think I'm all in, this is a great forum. I think Parth, and maybe Raja, Aditya sir, and others as well, Mukesh sir and Abhishek should definitely talk about having like a, users group. I think it's going to be very small. Even Ankit and Arpit Bhai will also be a part of it. I think there are hardly 10 or 12 of us who are at a certain size. And what happens is, there are a lot of, if you Google 3D printing in Mumbai, there will be 300 people. Everybody will say that I have an SLS and an MJF machine. Right? So हम लोग फिर मतलब इतना capital डाल के बैठे हैं, इतना overheads लेके बैठे हैं, right? So what happens is, these small, like for example, in the Indian AM Forum group also, only I recently saw a message that I have 15,000 cc of work for SLS. What is the what is the best price you can offer me, right? And that guy has no machine, right? So obviously, if he's unlocking a new application, if he's working with a customer which is new and which has a great relationship, of course, I'm sure all of us would be happy to help them, right? But then what happens is competition creeps in. Like X company will say, I will offer 40, Y company will say, I will offer 35. So yeah, we are valuing such a high potential technology in CC rates, right? In 1 or 2 rupees or 3 rupees CC rates. Who's going to talk about the investments, what we've done in the service bureau? Who's going to talk about the maintenance, the operator, things, the risks, right? The ever increasing material prices. I don't know if anybody of you has been hit, but 3D Systems has recently kind of increased their prices of the material because of, many internal kind of things, and even the USD INR. Yeah, Pat, you're raising your hand, right? So what do you do in this situation, man? You have a printer which is only going to run one material. What are you going to do in this situation? And that's where this problem actually gave rise to the AMUG group in Chicago. AMUG group was actually a 3D Systems user group. It was not an AMUG group, right? Where all of them, jaise Mukesh sir bol rahe, all of them discussed common problems and they wrote letters to the OEM, and the OEM had to take action. Because, for example, today here, Imaginarium, Objectify, 3D PD, Marco Polo, Think 3D decides that we are going to blacklist one OEM from India. He will not be able to sell machine at least for the 3 years, right? So, I mean, we have that power, but are we using that power enough? Is my question.
Something to think about, really, Priyesh. And maybe our team is actually taking note of this interesting conversation, and perhaps there is room for a longer discussion on this at some point. So definitely. So something you mentioned and something that Dr. Agarwal has mentioned, and I think everyone has touched upon in the last 1 hour, is 3D printing or are 3D printing services starting to get commoditized, or are they becoming a commodity? Because now we actually have, I face it every day. I have customers who have competing quotes and basically saying कि अरे आपका ₹2 ज़्यादा क्यों है, you know. So yeah, it's funny, but it's something we all relate with. So maybe Raja, give us your opinion on that. Do you think it's commoditized now? You're on mute, Raja.
In a way, yes, it is going in that direction. Unfortunately, as I think Dr. Mukesh has mentioned, we have to maintain a price, and we are selling it like potatoes. But what is happening here is the market forces at play. You know, it's a pure market forces at play. And in 3D printing, the skill, again, I'm saying about the manufacturing side of things, not the designing side. You know, designing is where the lot of skill is, a lot of value is in 3D printing. Okay. And a lot of complexity is in 3D printing, but not on the pure manufacturing side. You know, pure manufacturing side, that's where the beauty of 3D printing is. It removes lot of skill set dependency, you know, on the machinist or on the process planner or on the programmer, you know, which a typical mold or a CNC machine has to go through. You know, like if you have a final part, how do we get a final part from a bar of material, right? What are the steps involved? How many settings are involved? Which tool to use, right? And which kind of tool to use, like a carbide tool or a HSS tool, you know, all these things, you know, all these variables where the skill sets of that operator or skill set of the, you know, shop floor in charge, you know, comes into play, are completely removed out of the equation in terms of 3D printing. Only one element is the orientation. How do you orient the part? And the other element is the how to make the build full or optimized so that we can print those parts economically. You know, so when things are that simple, when I'm saying at the printing part of it again, you know, then obviously the way the way forward is commoditization of the business, you know. And because it's a market forces, you can't stop the market forces, you know, unless until you come up with a cartel or you of, you know, all the players coming together and sticking to one price point, which is very, very difficult. Which is in fact extremely difficult because of the number of players. Cartel happens only when you have 3 to 4 big players in the market. But if you have so many players from different geographies, it's not that easy to build a cartel. So that's the way forward. Commoditization is the way forward, and we need to avoid that from happening. That is the biggest challenge. How do you avoid from happening? To be very frank, I also don't have some answers to this thing, other than the standard good customer service, building a good brand, and all those standard stuff, giving it on time, so at least you can charge a premium for those non-core elements, the elements that still matter to a company, but not related to purely manufacturing. You know, that is one thing, like building a decent brand out of this good customer service and all that, or adding some value, offering some value-added services. Like post-processing. Post-processing is where I see some margins coming in terms of, you know, do you want some kind of an painting services? Do you want and some kind of a multi-assembly components? Do you want some kind of a 3D printing with CNC machining work? You know, those kind of activities, and good amount of value is there at the design level, no doubt about it. If you have to design for 3D printing or general design, also there's a good amount of value. So yeah, I mean, it is going the commoditization route, and the fear of unknown is not there. You know, unlike in other industries, there is a huge fear of unknown. You know, suppose even if some guy says I'll give the mold for 5 lakh rupees, another guy says 10 lakh rupees, the other guy, you know him well, you tend to prefer that guy because mold, many things can go wrong, right? And then you want the person you already worked with, you want the person who is close by to you, you want the person whom you like dealt with in the past, or whom you can easily access when things are not going in the right direction. So in that kind of business, you still have some kind of local preferences or some kind of relationship preferences. But in 3D printing, that is not happening, I would say. Whoever is going to give whoever is going to give at the low price point, how much is persist as Priyesh was mentioning, I have 15,000 cc, what is the price? It doesn't matter whether you're in, unless it is emergency, it doesn't matter whether you're in Vizag or you're in Mumbai or you're in Hyderabad or you're in Pune or Bangalore, right? So it's unfortunately reached that level, pure 3D printing. So yeah, to answer your question, yes, Path, it is going in that direction, and we need to identify ways to, to not push the economy, push the industry into that direction. Yeah. I hope I addressed your point, Path.
Yes, Raja, absolutely. Yes, Abhishek, you raised your hands. Did you have anything to add?
Yeah. So, see, I think being a service provider, we play in the broad spectrum, but it is limited. Like we provide the prototypes for a low volume manufacturing, but like if you see the most significant and noticeable change will come from the application base. So when a client sends you a part, if you go to the complete entire life cycle of the part, you go to the client, walk through the shop floor, how exactly that part is designed, iterated, like on a line, what fixture, jigs he used, how he assembled part, what end of tooling arm, like what greepers he used, then like QC fixture. So if we see the value proposition not only in validating the prototype or giving the low volume part, instead we give the value proposition in the complete life cycle of the part, how exactly it is being manufactured. So that is something where a service bureau will have expertise at certain point. Like you can suggest them instead of printing it full, we can use optimization, or we can save in terms of the material. We can suggest the new material, new orientation, or some different technology. So that if we go deep dive into that particular application or the complete life cycle of that product, I think that will be the value proposition which will bring in the final production. So this will help all the service bureaus from not commoditizing their services, right? So I think we may need to go into deep dive into each application and then add a value proposition in the each step of the manufacturing.
Right. So, Raja.
Yeah. So just
30
to add
seconds.
to
30 seconds.
Right. No, what Abhishek said is very true. Even we also, when we go for reverse engineering, right? When a customer says a problem statement, this is my problem statement. Can you help us solve that problem statement? Like some FMCG companies, there are some change parts. So lot of such scenarios where they come with a problem statement, then a pure STL file. That's where we see a lot of value, that we can generate. It may involve 3D scanning, reverse engineering, some amount of 3D designing, creating a CAD model, and then printing that CAD model. That whole value chain, going to the shop floor, understanding their problem statements, identifying which materials are the right to solve that. That kind of activities, yes, there's a good margin there. But if it's a pure STL file, then it is unfortunately going in the direction of commoditization, is what I feel. Okay.
Right. So we'll maybe spend another 3-4 minutes on one or two questions, and then we'll wrap it up. Just going off the back of what Abhishek has said, and something that a lot of discussion has happened. I've thought about it quite a bit. So service bureaus so far have been fairly industry agnostic, and Raja, you have this interesting opportunity of being inside the AMTZ, so working with some medtech companies, a lot of medtech companies. So I want to know, going forward, what should be the long-term strategy for service bureaus? Can they continue to be industry agnostic and try and serve every industry that knocks on their door, or should the approach be to actually dive deep into a particular industry like healthcare or aerospace, in case of Objectify, and go to the depths of that industry? What would you say should be the strategy for existing companies and anyone who wants to start a service bureau now? Dr. Agrawal, let's hear what you have to say about this stuff.
So, look, as I said, I mean, I was just typing an answer, and I think one Mr. Vilash Chavan had asked a very nice question that do you think the reduction in prices has led to a company like IdeaForge adopting the technology? And I agree with that. See, when you reduce the cost, yes, you see the value proposition more clearly, right? Your vision becomes better. You have better clarity. But regardless of what the cost is, if you are not willing to even see the value proposition, it becomes a moot point, you know. So those who are going to come in now, and those who are still here, newer startups, what my suggestion is, everybody should find their own, create a small blue ocean for themselves. Okay. Rather than saying, okay, I'll jump into the larger ocean and fight with the sharks and also become a piranha and a shark myself. If each entity will create a small blue ocean, like Aditya ji has done with his tooling activities, or no, all of us can actually coexist. Even newer players can come in, and there is a lot of room for growth, absolutely. But we don't have to go after the same pie, which is quite small in India. Somebody was talking about, I think Priyesh was talking about US market. And I think, see, in US, Priyesh, there are many service bureaus who are still there. I mean, I used to know them in the 90s, mid 90s, and they have grown. They still do prototyping, they do contract manufacturing. With time, they have moved, you know. Unfortunately, we have got caught in a time war. We are still where we were. So we need to come out of that, and the newer companies should start actually looking at that, saying, can I create a niche, maybe medical, maybe healthcare, maybe dental, maybe contract manufacturing using DLP technologies. So let me focus only on that. It's going to be tough, guys. I mean, for the younger guys who are coming in, it's going to be tough. But please find a niche, find a unique selling proposition rather than think, चलो मैं भी 2 SLA लगा लिया और वो CC rate को 2 रुपया कम किया और चल पड़ी गाड़ी. That's going to, we are already coming to that point, okay, where it's going to be of diminishing return and finally no return. Okay. So find a niche, find an application, okay, find that unique selling point. I mean, I remember when we started 3DPD, just stick to this point.
Yes, sir.
See, I had studied this industry, and in the US, in the 90s, there were 2 companies. One was called Plinetics, okay, which was the largest service bureau out of Detroit area. And then the other one was called Prototype Express, that was out of Chicago. Okay. So Dave Flynn, who's legend, okay, you look up who's Dave Flynn, okay, and Tom Mueller. Tom Mueller still happens to be a legend. Okay. Unfortunately, Dave passed away. Okay. Dave Flynn had Plinetics, and Tom Mueller had this Prototype Express in Chicago area. They could not coexist. Finally, they merged. Okay, and they became, well, after the merge, they were so huge, okay, that the smaller service bureaus around Dayton, Ohio, or Cincinnati, or Pittsburgh, and all of these guys, they survived, whereas Plinetics Express did not survive. Okay, so I had studied this. So when I came back, you know why Plinetics did not survive? I'll tell you. They bought back then SLA 5000, which was the mother of all machines. They bought 20, 30 of those. Okay, and they thought they can flood the market. So that kind of heavy borrowing from bank, okay, actually killed them. Whereas the smaller guy in Dayton, Ohio, or in Akron, Ohio, or in Schaumburg, Illinois, or California, right next to Plinetics in California. Okay. The smaller guy had 1 machine, 2 machines. He survived because he was not only doing SLA, he was also doing a lot of vacuum casting and so on. Okay. Whereas Tom and Dave thought just print, and that will be the way to go. So when I started, we knew that we have to get into vacuum casting, okay, silicon mold and vacuum casting. Aditya ji was doing a little bit of that, but we were probably the earliest ones who got a German, even though a very basic machine. And we said the money is going to come from the downstream value add services. Okay, the money is, because I had already studied what Plinetics had done in the US. They had failed. Okay. So even today, you can buy 4 SLA, you can bring Chinese resin, you can buy a Chinese machine, but you'll still fail. Find that solution for the customer. And if it requires you to do something in terms of adapting maybe casting, gravity die casting, pressure die casting, and your AM. Maybe you buy an AM machine and pressure die casting setup, a tool room and pressure die casting, all three. Then you go into and say, okay, don't just say, okay, I can print your conformal cooling tools. Everybody can print.
Right,
yeah. So
right.
for the new guys, find a complete solution and offer a solution. Thank you.
Right, sir. So Priyesh, just hold that thought. I saw you raise your hands, but hold that thought. I'm going to add my sort of penultimate question, which basically ties the entire conversation, this entire morning together. Is so, sir spoke about what the strategy should be for service bureaus going forward. We spoke about companies buying their own machines and service bureaus having different ways, different challenges and different solutions to those challenges. Agnikul recently unveiled one of the largest AM facilities in India. So the question that we had at the beginning of this panel discussion was, are service bureaus healthy? Are with the companies like Agnikul investing in AM as part of their shop floor, as part of their supply chain, are service bureaus going to be healthy in the future? So maybe quickly, 30 seconds from each one of you to tie this entire conversation together. Maybe we can start with Priyesh.
Sure, absolutely, Parth. I think Agnikul is a great example. And just to, before I answer that, you asked us, is the service bureau business healthy, right? Today, the world's largest integrated rapid manufacturing company is Proto Labs, right? Proto Labs is a family-owned company, and it's a debt-free company since the start. So for all of us who are thinking that, कि यार ये धंधे में तो पैसा उठाना ही पड़ता है और लोन लेना ही पड़ता है, Proto Labs has been debt-free since it's obviously there were a lot of investors, then private investors, but even if before that it was a debt-free company, which sets a great example for all of us here, that even with this business, even with having to struggle with cash flows, because we have to pay advance for the machines and the materials, and then the customers pay us after 30, 45, and sometimes they just don't show up. Even in that kind of industry, people are surviving and making good money. So trying to be very optimistic here. Second, about Agnikul, I think the relevance of service bureau again isn't a kind of question with this example. Even if Agnikul has bought an EOS M400, they will continue to outsource parts to everybody here who has a metal machine, because they are not using that printer for prototyping. They are using that printer to qualify a certain part with a certain recipe of material, process parameters, and post-processing. Okay, so anybody who thinks that, because Agnikul has bought, a machine, companies like, for example, I know Objectify was getting a lot of work, Intech was getting a lot of work, and we were also doing, kind of some work for them. There will be a short-term gap in the inflow of orders, because they will be qualifying parts, right? Their whole effort, and this is just first-time conversations with their co-founders, right? They're using this machine to qualify and not to produce. And this is what even GE, Boeing, Airbus, Safran, all of these companies have done. Why does GE, even if they have 148 machines in Ohio, Westchester, why do they have more vendors for metal 3D printing? There is a company called Centavia in Florida, which has more than 15 metal machines dedicated for GE, even though if GE has 148 machines. Because again, I'm sorry, but I cannot emphasize this more, that if we are talking about production, then even if you put the number of machines combined with all of us here, it's still going to be not enough. I hope I was able to answer that question, Parth.
Absolutely. Aditya sir, maybe something to add to this?
No, I think service bureaus will always, we need to keep innovating in our thought process, trying to develop new processes, new applications, and we'll always, there will be something to do. And irrespective of whether big companies buy their own equipment, they can never, have the variety which, no service bureau will also have the complete variety, but there are so many of them, and someone will have something on the menu which the bigger, larger industry will be able to order for. So I think industry is not going to die out, but it needs to evolve.
Right. Would anyone else like to add anything to this?
I think,
Yes, sir.
Agnikul buying a machine is a good thing. Why should, in fact, service bureaus should be very excited. We need more Agnikuls. We need more end users to buy machines, adopt technologies. I mean, wow, more the merrier. That is exactly what we want, right? Adoption and adaption and movement of the technology. I wish tomorrow even the other startups in aerospace will buy. Why one machine? 4 machines. See, it's always better for service bureaus if there is more awareness. It's never bad. In fact, let them buy one machine. Yeah. But the awareness they are going to create is going to be the ripple effect, and the domino effect is going to be amazing for us. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, Raja. You're on mute, Raja.
Sorry, very valid point, Mukesh. I was also thinking on the same lines. See, what percentage of the manufacturing is now in AM? Maybe 1 single digits, right? There's a whole lot of manufacturing which we need to capture. We need to move towards the AM industry, and there is a lot of scope for that, right? So when these end users buy those machines, they adopt this technology, it actually increases the overall pie, right? And the goal right now is to increase the overall pie for AM, right? That is one thing. So Agnikul buying a machine actually gives some new ideas, right? Creates a lot of awareness in the industry, and many other companies start thinking about AM, right? And then that eventually sends some orders to the service provider way, right? And second thing is service provider business going to stay, or is going to extinct? I think it's going to grow in future, right? See, product life cycles have become shorter, right? The designs keep on changing. For many products in the market, I keep talking about this in many such forums. I was mentioning about this long tail approach. Like if you look at the Amazon, right? 80% of the sales may happen from the 20% of the books, but the rest 20% of the sales happen from the 80% of the books, which you don't see anywhere, which are not even visible in the retail stores, because the volume of such sale is very minimal, like 2 books or 3 books about, like, say, statistical analysis of COVID, let's say, what is the market size for such kind of book. So those products are available in Amazon, which are not available elsewhere. What I mean is that there are a lot of new products that are going to come up with increased use of design tools, with AM, and all that interesting niche segments keep popping up, right? Maybe in healthcare, there'll be wearables, there'll be big devices, there'll be small devices, there'll be diagnostic devices. So a lot of new products keep coming in, where the life cycle of the product is going to be very short. In such a scenario, they're not going to set up their entire manufacturing setup in-house, right? They would prefer to outsource it, get it done. But at the same time, the service providers, as Aditya ji has rightly mentioned, to keep up with times, we need to innovate. We need to provide the holistic service to them. We need to kind of give an end-to-end service to them. Ideally, one-stop shop kind of a thing, if they can get it, and these service providers should walk them through the whole cycle, rather than thinking about ripping them off, So such kind of small steps, if you take, the service bureau industry is going to thrive in future.
Right. I think that sort of ends our discussion here. Yes, Priyesh, please.
Sorry, just last. We live in a country where पहले इस्तेमाल करे और फिर विश्वास करे. Okay, so इस्तेमाल करने के लिए सर्विस ब्यूरो लगेंगे. We should.
Very well.
Just wanted to end the conversation on a light note.
Lighter note. Yeah, absolutely. I think we won't have a lot of time. Sorry.
Yes, I need to add one word.
Yes, Abhishek.
You see the manufacturing market, it's a 12 trillion plus USD market, and where exactly AM stands is a 5 billion market. So, like, it is good that people are adopting 3D printing in-house. Like, AM should be easy to access for everyone. But let's see, Agnicool and all, they use the AM to validate the design. So these OEMs are generally focused on their end goal, how my thing will go up in the space. They don't need to get into this technical hustle, how this is going to manufacture, how this is going to orient it. So ultimately, they will validate the designs using AM labs or setup equipment. But the expertise they use to leverage is to take from the like a service bureaus, how exactly you need to define that part, optimize that part, and how you are manufacturing that part. So I think in the future, in AM, it is very closely linked with the services as well. But service bureaus needs to develop that capabilities to serve that functionality.
Right, right, Abhishek. Thank you so much, everyone. We wanted to take some questions from the audience, but this has we've already overshot our time by quite a bit. What I think we can do is perhaps just take one question from someone who was going to be a panelist, but unfortunately he was traveling, so he couldn't be a part of it. Sarup ji had his hand raised for the last maybe an hour or so. So we would extend that respect to him to answer his question. Sir, if you still have that question, please share it with us. If you have some opinion, please share with us.
Thanks. I'm Sarup here. Good morning to everyone. It was a wonderful discussion, right? Starting from Ankit. I think the service industry need to take an example that the CNC machine service bureaus have not died, right? They are still growing, and every day everyone is growing. Xerox machine service centers are growing. So don't bother about the CCs and things like that. I think we need to take example from companies which are starting with CNC machines, which are starting with injection molding machines. They are all service bureaus, and they're doing the business till now and doing it very profitably. That's only the comment I had to add.
Right, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, everyone, for the panelists as well as the audience for joining us. And I cannot thank the panelists enough. They were only supposed to be here till 12:15, 12:30, but it's now almost 1 o'clock, and they've been here with us patiently answering questions. So thank you so much. I'll hand over to our team member Jagjit ji to end today's proceedings. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Parthji. Thank you so much. And it is indeed my privilege and honor to propose the vote of thanks. First and foremost, I think Mr. Ankit Sahu, the Managing Director of Objectify, who despite his busy schedule, and he found time for this particular session. And the kind of thoughts he shared on defense and on the aerospace side, and the kind of journey which he's taken, and to reach up to that level of 30% of the revenues coming from exports is something which is not only inspiring, it is motivating, it is enlightening, and in fact, the way he's taken about this journey in the last about, I suppose 2013 they started, it has been a phenomenal decade for them, and there's so much to learn from them, from Objectify. We, the Additive Manufacturing Forum members, are absolutely grateful to the other panel members, Dr. Mukesh Agarwal Sahab, Mr. Aditya Kumar ji, Mr. Priyesh Mehta, Mr. Rajasekhar, Mr. Abhishek Shete, whom I would call possibly Mukesh ji and Ratit ji, I will call them to be Bhishma Pitama of the additive manufacturing industry. Priyesh and Rajaji, I would call them Arjun and Karan of the Mahabharata, and Abhishek, I would call him Abhimanyu. So I'm also grateful. We are also the entire forum is also extremely grateful to the panelists carrying divergent views and ideation, and were able to bring the shades of rainbow for each one of us to, which is the participants, to pick up the shades and hues which we were kind of convinced about. And there have been tremendous takeaways from the experienced speaker and the panel members, and we seek their support in future as well. Last but not the least, I thank all the panelists, the participants and the attendees who kind of would have benefited from the discussion from these learned speakers and the panelists, and who had kind of shared their thoughts and questions for themselves and for others to benefit. Also grateful to the leadership at IAMF for spearheading these initiatives of bringing this wisdom on these platforms through these webinars, and bringing the thought leaders like Mr. Ankit Sahu, Dr. Mukesh Agarwal, Aditya ji, Priyesh ji, Rajashekar, Abhishek Shetty ji, and facilitating a connect between the leaders and the industry players. So with that, I would I would once again thank each one of them for bringing this great session to an end, and enlightening us with the thoughts, ideation, and their own experiences, their own kind of pitfalls, and everything which kind of made them successful to where they are today. Thank you so much.